big win.
Welcome to the Week 10 PFF pregame show. We're here live. It's going to be me, Sam, Eric, and Ian is here with us today, so it's going to be extra special. We're going to hit every single game. We're going to take a look at the sides, the totals, the fantasy angle, and of course, I'm here. Prop King is here. We're ready to rock. I made it past a really harrowing wind experience today.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the weather. I'm prepared. I've been in the elements. It should be a lot of fun. We're going to start with the wind game, which is Texans-Browns. 53 degrees, some showers, but 31 mile-an-hour winds throughout the game. Baker versus Deshaun Watson here. I'm going to just kick this off and say Deshaun Watson is the dramatically better quarterback. He's getting points. It's a 4-point spread, total of 45. I know the Texans are the worst team, but with the elements involved, give me the better quarterback getting points.
I think that's fair, and I'm kind of joining Mike Renner in this anti-weather game stance. You know, normally I'm actually okay with them, particularly when it's snow, but now it ruins everything I wanted to say about this game, so I don't like it. The Texans defense turns every quarterback into Patrick Mahomes. It's giving up a passer rating of like 120 overall for the league. That's better than Mahomes. It's better than Wilson. It's better than Rodgers. Could have been Baker's chance to shine, but now there's a big amount of wind. Baker's going to look like Baker again, and the only good news for Cleveland is that at least they can run the ball still.
He's been eating salad, though. Maybe that, that helps.
Yeah, out of a bag, so what good are we going to do here? Yeah, I mean, when you look at this game, though, I think there's an underrated element of it, which is that Deshaun Watson, you know, he hasn't run as much as he used to, but he's a guy that can make plays happen with his legs in both the design game as well as in the scramble game. What wins football games in the NFL? It's having a great quarterback, having great weapons on the outside, and you know, Houston, even though they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, still has this in Cooks, you know, Fuller, Stills, and Cobb. Tight ends are good as well. When you look at the Cleveland Browns, they really don't have that, and we saw that 2 weeks ago when they had to play the Raiders at home in this elements. Like, they didn't pivot from anything. Like, Baker just kind of dropped back and threw to receivers who can catch. Odell is, you know, obviously out now, so I like Houston here. I don't understand the line movement. I'm going to continue to take it as it drifts away from 3 to 3.5, now to 4, 4.5. I'll take Houston here.
I think one funny thing with Watson this year, not funny, but just what's been happening, the reason why he's been better statistically in almost anything without DeAndre Hopkins, he's putting his foot down, throwing to his first read more often. I mean, from 2017 to 2019, just 64% of his throws were to the first read. That was 50th among 68 qualified QBs. This year, he's 9th at 71%. So we know he can be a magic man, you know, when he's going off script. But I think just the more he can stay in that offense just from time to time, we will continue to see the best version of him. In Fantasyland, though, he's not the only guy we can trust on Texans. Happy Duke Johnson week, everybody.
That's true.
I know all you haters want to say running backs don't matter, but it does matter in Fantasyland in terms of we want the guys that get the most snaps, get the most touches, and when your quarterback is Deshaun Watson, that doesn't hurt so bad either. So Duke Johnson, legit top 15 play at the running back position this week.
Two guys that you have right ahead of Duke Johnson Jr. are the running back duo for the Cleveland Browns. So now Nick Chubb is back, Kareem Hunt, we all know what he can do. How do you rank those two guys? Who are a couple of players that maybe you're playing them over this week?
They're both borderline RB1s. I wanted to be the guy to come out and say, oh no, 2 running backs now, we can't trust this. But this week and beyond, the Browns have a really nice second half schedule that they could maybe run up some wins if Baker could do it. But I have Chubb as my RB11, Hunt as my RB13. I am taking them ahead of guys like Duke Johnson, Giovanni Bernard, Jerick McKinnon, because we've seen them thrive in the same offense before in the year. And I wondered, with Odell Beckham Jr. now out of the picture, they used Kareem Hunt a lot in the slot and out wide last year. I know it's a new tocoaching staff, but hopefully we see them get back to getting their best players on the field at the same time, because that certainly does include Chubb and Hunt alike.
We've got 3 people taking Houston, Sam Monson taking the over in the wind. Is that pick 6 for Baker? Is that what you're feeling?
Yeah, mistakes the fact that the Texans can't stop the run as well as the pass, so I think they're still all right for points, even if Baker is not going to look great.
Mistakes, like your sweater choice this morning.
How dare you?
Shots fired. I'm in. That's the only one. I just had to get one off. All right. Washington, Detroit. We'd have to talk about this game, contractually obligated. The Lions are a 3-point favorite at home, total of 46, 45.5. And these teams are right next to each other, 27 and 28 in our power rankings. We'll go through this one very quickly. No Kenny Golladay. I'm going to take the over because why not?
I will take Detroit, even though the data point I'm about to drop scares the hell out of me. Right? Matthew Stafford throwing to Kenny Golladay is basically that offense right now. And when he's not there, there's a huge difference. When Stafford throws to Golladay, he has a passer rating of 119. When he throws to wide receivers that aren't Kenny Golladay, that passer rating is 88. So it's a massive drop, and he's not there. On the other hand, Washington just aren't very good, and Alex Smith is the quarterback.
That's like going from Patrick Mahomes to Dwayne Haskins.
Yes.
let's party with this game, okay? Indoors, terrible defense, no pass rush. Alex Smith's leg is never going to feel safer than it is going to today.
That's true.
Like, there's no weather. There's no there's anybody within 3 feet of him. Terry McLaurin's best game so far this year, I believe, was indoors in Arizona. He had a bunch of targets, did well in that game. This game's indoors. Jeffrey Okudah, one of the bottom 10 players in the NFL this year in terms of WAR. It's a top 3 pick. I like the over in this game, and I like Alex Smith over 1.5 touchdowns at a plus price. I think there's actually going to be a little bit of scoring in this game. The only thing that could curb it is the fact that Detroit actually has a pretty good, Washington has a pretty good defensive line and could hurt Detroit with a pass rush.
That's what kind of worries me. I don't think either of these offenses have earned the benefit of the doubt. I know the defenses are bad, and we can say defenses, or offenses decides defense, whatever you want to call it. Matthew Stafford, he's only had 3 games all season with an average target depth, under 10 yards. All 3 have come with Kenny Golladay out of the picture. They're a different offense. Washington with Alex Smith, great story. We all know that, but come on, how many times can this guy throw the ball, J.D. McKissick? And the fact that it's not even just, J.D. McKissick, he's been talked about as a safety guy for Alex Smith. He has 24 targets when lined up in the slot or out wide this year. Alvin Kamara is number 2 with just 16. These are plays they could easily design for Antonio Gibson, but they're just choosing not to. And in Fantasyland, we got to adjust to what they're doing, not what we hope what happens. So because of that, I have J.D. McKissick ranked ahead of Gibson, and maybe throw up to do it, but here we are.
But don't you think that the Detroit Lions are a team that this year has been a classic get behind, then pile up some garbage touchdowns like they did a week ago against Minnesota, like they did against Indianapolis the previous week? I think Washington could in a weird way get a lead in this game, and then Matthew Stafford actually be forced to throw the ball downfield, which they don't want to do without Golladay in sort of a neutral game situation. But in a game like this, they might be forced to. And Washington's done a good job of creating turnovers, so they might be able to get a touchdown that way and force the over to be a thing.
Washington D-line seems by far the best individual position group out of any of these teams.
Yeah.
All right, that was 2 minutes more than we need to spend on that game. We'll pivot very quickly to a much, much better game. Yeah, you really went in on that game. I told you we were going to go quickly, and you came back with a second point.
The heart wants what the heart wants, George.
Unbelievable. A glutton for punishment over here.
Thank you.
Jesus. All right, we're going to go to Bucs-Panthers. The Bucs, obviously everyone knows this, that has been on Twitter over the past 10 hours, that the Bucs were on the tarmac for 6.5 hours and finally got to Carolina very late last night. They are a 5.5-point favorite in Carolina, total 49.5, 50. And this one, 15-mile-an-hour winds, a little bit of chance of rain. Ali Marpet's still out, Christian McCaffrey out, Russell Okung also out. For me, when I look at this game, I think about how bad Tom Brady was against the Saints. He's been bad against the Saints twice in terms of throwing interceptions, but he's been money against every other team. I'm taking TB and a bounce back. Give me the Bucs.
Yeah, plus now he's cranky, having been sitting on the tarmac for a while. Already pissed, having been coming off a bad game. Now cranky. This is the perfect Tom Brady bounce-back game. A little bit concerned about the lack of Ali Marpet. I know offensive linemen on their own don't tend to change things, but Marpet allowed 7 pressures all season long. Joe Hague allowed 7 pressures against the Saints. Joe Hague isn't starting. They're reshuffling that offensive line. But if that's as big an issue this week as it was last week, Brady will have problems.
Yeah, look, at the end of the season, this might be one of the votes they don't count when it comes to the NFC South. But in this game, I feel like that they just match up really well with the Carolina Panthers here. The Panthers, I think played a very big effort against Kansas City last week. I think there's probably a little bit of a letdown here. Bridgewater also, just not the quarterback you want to come from behind with. You want to be ahead in those games. And I think Tampa Bay's defense matches up really well with an offense, with Carolina that's, pretty good. But I think the number is fairly spot on here at 6. Starting to get money on Carolina at 5.5. If anything, I'd go Tampa.
Do you think that's a reaction to the tarmac thing?
If it is, we should just burn the whole thing down. Why are we even here?
That's my take on it. What are we doing with these Tampa Bay wide receivers? Because last week we talked about, okay, Antonio Brown's going to come out. He's going to look great. He's going to get fed. To be honest, in watching that game, I thought he was the receiver with the most juice by far. Yeah. but they just didn't really get him the ball a lot. So what are you doing with these 3 receivers this week?
I'm still going back to with AB as the guy to start in Tampa Bay this week, and I think moving forward as well. I mean, look, Mike Evans, he's been their vertical guy, he's been their red zone guy, but we see Bruce Arians throughout this year. After week 2, he's like, I'm sick anytime Evans gets fewer than 10 targets. Bruce Arians has been sick this entire season because they're not treating him as that alpha wide receiver 1. He was for pretty much the better part of the past half decade. We got Chris Godwin playing banged up. He's got a career low average target depth right now. They're treating him as more of a slot receiver than he's ever been throughout his entire career. So I truly believe, they went through all this bad PR to bring in Antonio Brown. More weeks than not moving forward, we are going to see him be that leader in targets. And I also think on the other side of the ball, we can get back to trusting DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson a little bit more. Teddy Bridgewater, just season low, 4.4 yard average target depth last week. Also had an accordingly season worst mark in yards per attempt. I mean, Christian McCaffrey came back and they just, again, felt this need to force feed him the ball in the flat, which, hey, it's great for fantasy. But, and to their credit, they almost beat the Chiefs, so it wasn't like the worst results. But I do think Teddy going to his big play receivers downfield more times than not will bring out the best version of this offense moving forward.
You have Mike Davis right back into the top 10.
He plays over 90% snaps, you got to.
He's good. He's legitimately good. He's one of the better pass-catching backs. They're an underdog here. I don't see why you wouldn't do that. Where are you ranking a guy like Chris Godwin, who played with 7 fingers last week?
Yeah.
And he's a guy that when he's healthy, he's awesome. It seems like Brady likes him, but he's out there. He's like Jason Pierre-Paul out there.
And he's got popping up on the injury report with a hamstring too. The guy just isn't healthy. I have him as my wide receiver 32, Mike Evans wide receiver 31. I'm starting them ahead of Marquise Brown, Christian Kirk, some of these more boomer bust type guys. But I just don't think that same ceiling we saw in past years is there. And also the Tampa Bay defense playing as good as they are this year, we're just not seeing those same kind of Jameis Winston back and forth shootouts where all the fantasy points are coming. So it's a lot of factors. Godwin's still a great player, but at less than 100% with all his target competition, way harder to trust as a consistent wide receiver too.
You heard it here first. The Bucs miss Jameis Winston. Wow. All right, it's prop time here, and this game, oh baby. Okay, the first one, Tom Brady didn't throw a touchdown last week. This week, he's going to throw at least 3, over 2.5 passing touchdowns, plus 145, plus money on Tom Brady having a bounce back week. Come on, people. Similarly, Tom Brady, no interceptions, minus 130. He only throws interceptions against the Saints. The Panthers, not a very good defense. And I don't anticipate he'll have any trouble against them. And then, perhaps my favorite one, Eric's going to join me on this bandwagon. Under 39.5 rushing yards. You can find it at 40-41 in some places. For Leonard Fournette, minus 120. Feed me the Leonard Fournette unders. All right. Eagles, Giants in New York. 15-mile-an-hour winds. This is Giants as a 4-point underdog. 44.5, 45 is the total. Giants are 30th ranked team. Eagles are 21. Miles Sanders is playing this week. Alshon Jeffrey is playing this week. Lane Johnson is playing this week. Devontae Freeman is out. Real big blow to the New York Giants there. I'm going to start this off and ask you a question. Is the better quarterback in this game not Daniel Jones?
Honestly, it could be. It really could be. Daniel Jones has been sneaky okay this season. It's not that he's been good. He's just been better than the train wreck around him. And I think that's the reason they've been close in a lot of these games. But I think you highlighted the difference, right? The Eagles are creeping back towards getting healthy. They're getting all these bodies back on the field. And that should be the difference in the NFC East. But we're dealing with the number 1 and the number 6 quarterback in terms of turnover-worthy plays in the NFL this season. This game, sloppy is what I expect.
But you're taking the Eagles?
Yes.
Okay, I'm taking the Giants.
The Eagles closed as 4.5-point favorites on the road, at home just a couple weeks ago. Don't even cover that number. Probably should have lost the game outright. We ran our WAR numbers this week. Carson Wentz is below replacement level this year. He's like a bottom 10 player in the entire NFL. And now, not only are we seeing 4, I'm seeing 5s pop up here. People are betting into the Eagles here on the road in New York, as George said, against a quarterback who's playing better than Carson Wentz. I don't really care if people are getting healthy. He can't hit the broadside of the barn anyway. So if it was me or you, Sam, out there, I don't think that really makes much of a difference. The Giants, obviously they want to end every possession with a kick, which is a problem, but Philadelphia is ending most possessions with a kick or a turnover. So I think now that the number's out to like 5, I'm just going to go New York here.
I'm glad that you've gotten off the pass train. I'm just happy for you.
Well, the only people that shouldn't be passing right now are the Eagles.
Miles Sanders, he's back. How far up into your, say, top 10 is Miles Sanders jumping?
I have him at 7, but I mean, Field Yates on the PFF Fantasy Pod this week, he had him as number 4, so this is a legit, upside RB1. He played at least 75% of the offensive snaps in all of his non-injury shortened games earlier this season. I know Doug Peterson has used committee backfields during his career, but with Miles Sanders, it truly has been a one-back backfield. I'm more concerned about these wide receivers. Look, Travis Fulgham has been really the only bright spot of this Eagles passing game all season long. They signed him to a 1-year, $142,000 contract on October 3rd. That's like, I don't know, freaking 40 days ago. Alshon Jeffrey, whether he's washed or not, whether he's dusted or not, has been there since 2017, made very big plays for his franchise. We got Greg Ward, your prototypical small shifty slot receiver. Jalen Reagor, first-round pick, field stretching. Could they do the unthinkable and take Fulgham off the field? I don't think all the way, but at a minimum, I do think we see some sort of a rotation in Fulgham, who has been a legit top 10 receiver in PPR points per game. I'm nervous about going back to the well this week because, you want to assume rational coaching and the best players are going to play, meritocracy, all that. But again, Jeffrey has been there so long, I don't think he's coming back to sit on the bench.
Yeah, you have Fulgham at number 30, the lowest of all 4 of our rankers. There's someone that has him at 13. I'll leave him nameless. But they have incentive to give the ball to Jalen Reagor, especially because all of those first-round wide receivers look really good. In particular, Justin Jefferson, the guy that a lot of people in Philadelphia go, why didn't you take this guy? We saw what he did at LSU. I also like some props in this game. And it goes back to Daniel Jones, who is the better quarterback in this game. And his over 1.5 passing touchdowns is plus 130. They're underdogs at home. Give it to me. Just feed me Daniel Jones. I'm going to be requesting apologies from everyone post-game. All the Daniel Jones hate pre-draft. And then Wayne Gallman, over 9.5 receiving yards, minus 115. Just takes one, baby. Just takes one. The Philadelphia Eagles linebackers, not very good. I'm not sure if you've seen Nate Jerry this year, but it has been a disaster. So
you know where to look, though. It's where it's 10 yards behind a running back going into the end zone after a catch.
I'm Wayne Gallman on my way. Feeding families, putting children through school. You're welcome. We'll be back with some stacks for your DFS lineups. Hang with us. All right, while we're on break, I'm going to help you set your lineups by going over the consensus rankings by position. We're going to start with quarterback. Of course, you can get those all on PFF.com with an Edge subscription. One of the best deals out there, $40 for a whole year. You get everything you can imagine, draft coverage all the way through your next fantasy draft next season and through that halfway point of that season as well. So, quarterbacks, here we go. Starting at number 10, Jared Goff, Drew Brees. Number 12 is Ryan Tannehill, 13 Cam Newton, 14 is Derek Carr, 15 Baker Mayfield, Ben Roethlisberger, 16 Tua, Drew Lock, Matt Stafford, Joe Burrow in 20th, and 21st is Teddy Bridgewater, followed by Daniel Jones. If you are looking for some stacks to get in your DFS tournament lineups this week, there's a lot of great content on PFF.com. One of our favorite articles is the one that our colleague Ben Brown writes every week. His goal is to find some stacks that are going to be low ownership, even if the players in there might be some guys that a lot of people like. We're going to highlight 3 of them here. We'll start with the Buffalo-Arizona game, a game where there should be lots of points. And the first stack is going to be Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Chase Edmonds. Eric, what do you like about this one?
I think actually the fact that people might fade Chase Edmonds because of the Kenyon Drake news is probably the best part of this entire thing because we know that running backs don't perform particularly well with ankle injuries and there are going to be people who are going to come off of Drake to come off of Edmonds to Drake, and that's going to low ownership is what you want for a player who could blow up like Chase Edmonds. Allen and Diggs, I think, are table stakes at this point. If you want to play that game, it's probably going to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. Diggs is the most targeted player in Buffalo, and Allen gives zero fucks about throwing the ball. So
and they throw the ball a lot.
And they throw the ball a lot. They're the perfect team.
They're like the Titans if the Titans realized.
Yeah, if they would be good if they were the Titans. Yeah.
By the way, has anyone watched Kenyon Drake? He's not very good. Ankle injury or not.
It hasn't stopped Cliff Kingsbury from playing him, by the way. So there is a little bit of risk here.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to talk about Cliff Kingsbury's decisions this year. Okay, Stack, numero dos. You mentioned that game might be the highest scoring. Seattle-Los Angeles is another very high-scoring game. Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, you would presume that those three make it back with a vengeance, and then pairing them with Josh Reynolds, a guy that you could just see Sean McVay going, want me to show you how good I am at coaching? Watch me get Josh Reynolds loose.
Yeah, and I mean the third corner for Seattle is no match for you or me. So yeah, Josh Reynolds shouldn't have a big problem here. I think the cool thing about this game is we know that Jalen Ramsey's not going to be shadowing a receiver, so it's not going to be a situation where it's good in the sense that, okay, you can play both of these guys and feel like you're going to get a decent production out of both of them. But the other thing is there's not going to be like a chalky play among them where you know Ramsey's on Lockett, so play Metcalf or vice versa. That sort of gives you the freedom to play both. And again, Wilson is awesome, consistently good week to week, but he also has some boom or bust to him. And I think this game is one where you could see the boom part of it. And it might be unexpected given how above expectation Los Angeles' defense has played this year.
Yeah, well, he better because they need to win this game. By the way, DK Metcalf, when he is against Jalen Ramsey, that is an awesome matchup. Yes. I'm not sure there's a matchup in the NFL that I more want to watch than that duo. All right, Stack number 3, Las Vegas and Denver. Derek Carr, Henry Ruggs, Darren Waller, and Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy last week in the second half was roasting cornerbacks.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where if you like our pick of the week, which was Denver +5, now down Denver +3.5, you can kind of hedge it here with a little bit of the Las Vegas Raiders here at home, indoors, great elements here against a Denver defense where Bryce Callahan's played really well, but he's banged up, and the rest of their team's kind of a fraud. Pass rushing, also coverage. So Henry Ruggs here can get you like sort of a low-priced, deep ball kind of situation. And Darren Waller, while they do have pretty good linebackers in Alexander Johnson, I think he's probably one of the best and most athletic tight ends in the league. So I'd play him. Jerry Jeudy, there's no one on the Las Vegas Raiders that can cover him.
No, and there's no one. Here's the other thing that I've mentioned many times this week. I don't understand how Denver doesn't throw him the ball every single time. There's no one else on that team that deserves to see a target. Similarly, giving the ball to Melvin Gordon, which makes zero sense.
There's a little bit of Pat Shurmur, Stephon Diggs situation here where, like, if he figures out that this is just the 2017 Vikings, Case Keenum is Drew Lock, and Stephon Diggs is Jerry Jeudy, they might actually be able to open this thing up. Hopefully he realizes that. He's not a terrible coach.
This is fair. All right, we will be back. We've got some good ones. I've got some props that you guys are going to love. So hang tight. We'll be right back.
On this break, I'm going to help you figure out who to play at wide receiver. I'm going to go over wide receivers 25 through, let's see if I can get all the way through 45 in our consensus rankings. These are consensus between our 4 great rankers. Of course, you can go see where each of the rankers has these guys and make the decision for yourself on PFF.com. But while you're here, let's get it. Number 25 is DJ Moore, followed by Mike Evans, then Juju, then Justin Jefferson. Chase Claypool. Antonio Brown is at number 30, although one ranker has him at 16. Corey Davis, 31. He already played. Curtis Samuel, T. Higgins, Marvin Jones Jr., Jacoby Myers. Sterling Shepard is number 36. Number 37, Mike Williams. Then Marquise Hollywood Brown, Tim Patrick. Christian Kirk is 40. Darius Slayton for the Giants at 41, followed by Emmanuel Sanders, John Brown, Rashard Higgins, and Darnell Mooney. Man, that guy just keeps killing corners. Maybe Nick Foles can find him on Monday night.
We are back, and we're going to Green Bay, where there are going to be 25-mile-an-hour winds, 10% chance of rain. It is going to be cold, 38 degrees there. Jaguars are let's see, it is now 13.5, a 13.5 point underdog, total at 47. The difference between these two games, the Packers are 5th ranked team, the Jaguars number 31, is about 12.5 points just using that power ranking here. You figure, well, Jake Luton, he looked good last week, but can he possibly do this again? I am rooting for chaos here, so give me the over. I don't think the elements affect Aaron Rodgers, but will certainly impact Jake Luton.
Yeah, I will take the Jags. There's a lot of reasons to not like Green Bay here. They're missing a lot in the secondary. We're not too far removed from the Vikings running all over them. The Jags, were able to keep it close, and there's bad weather. So I think ultimately Jacksonville should be good enough to cover that spread, but not threaten in any way, shape, or form to win the game.
Famous last words this year has been Jacksonville is good enough too, and then whatever has happened, after that, yeah. That's why I'm off this game. I can't take Green Bay because the weather is clearly an issue for them. They have no desire to stop the run. You look at Minnesota, for example, their opponents, they're the only opponent that had less than 6 men in the box on early downs first half of games. Like, even against that team, they feel like, let's not stop the run. The running back for Jacksonville, he's a pretty good player for being undrafted. Funny, but he'll probably get some run here, and it'll be difficult for Green Bay to extend. But I can't be putting my money behind a 6th-round pick out of Oregon State. The Beaver only, sort of comes out once.
Eager Beaver. Talk to me, Ian, about DJ Chark, because he caught that long pass last week. It was like, this is going to be a romp. Jake Luton can't do anything, and then all of a sudden goes deep to DJ Chark. In the wind, are you buying Chark again?
Yeah, that was his big game, but honestly, over the past month, he's been getting fed one downfield target after another. Since week 6, DJ Chark is number 1 in the NFL in total air yards. He's had a bye week during that stretch, so they've literally, with Minshew, with Luton, they've just been feeding this dude downfield targets. And with Laviska Shenault out with his hamstring injury, I was thinking maybe he could take over as the primary pass down option with Luton under center, but that's not the case. It's still Chark season and go back to the well. I know a lot of people are worried about the wind. For me, it's more of a tiebreaker. Like if you have two guys similarly ranked and you want to go with the guy that's not windy, that's great, but don't be benching Chark for someone that you have ranked in the 30s just because of a little bit of wind. He's still a good guy. DJ Chark, he's capable of catching a shorter pass and still doing something with it, but it's James Robinson, DJ Chark, and that's it from this offense.
And then I assume for Green Bay, you're just rolling everybody out there.
Pretty much.
You have DJ Chark as your number 17 wide receiver. You are the highest on him of all the rankers. They say the devil, he goes down to Georgia. Prop King, he is taking a trip to Green Bay this week. And you guys know how much I love quarterbacks and their ability to rush for just over a few yards. And in this game, we have a couple of undervalued athletes. Jake Luton, over 8.5 rushing yards. This guy's going to be running for his life. He doesn't know what he's doing out there. Plus 115, over 8.5. And then Aaron Rodgers. Why only 7.5? He is a legit athlete. 7.5 rushing yards is just too few. Minus 120. Nothing I love more than overs for quarterback rushing yards. Bonus one, by the way. Chris Conley, under 2.5 receptions, plus 120. He's just not very good.
Don't doubt former Chiefs like that.
Just not very good.
Prospering.
All right, on to an actually fun game. The Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills in Arizona, and the Bills are 2.5 point underdogs. This line has moved around a little bit. At 2.5, I want to point out that the teaser is now in play. So if you can find another game where there's a team you like who's a 2.5 point underdog, maybe Seattle, for example, who's a 2.5 point underdog. I just bet this before the show started. You can get both of them out to 8.5, cross 7, cross 8, and both those teams I think are the better teams here. The Bills, certainly the better team, 8th in our power ranking. The Cardinals are 12th. Total is 55.5. Give me the over.
Yeah, give me Buffalo to win outright. Josh Allen is going to carve up this defense. Josh Allen had a wobble, right? There were 3 games just after I signed the Josh Allen apology form.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Where it looked like he went back to being old Josh Allen.
Sam.
But they were all bad weather games. And I know, look, what's the point in being Josh Allen if you can't cut through a little bit of wind and drizzle? But they happened. They were bad weather. Arizona plays in the desert. And just to make sure, they play indoors in the desert. So Josh Allen is going to deal to one of the best receiving corps in the NFL. They're going to put up points. They're going to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, look here. If you can get the Buffalo Bills at +3, take them, right? Because I think that when you grade all the players, they're a better team. People are a little bit scared off by the fact that they have defenders that are on the COVID list. Like Josh Norman doesn't matter. Like he's addition by subtraction at this point. So if you're going to get the 3, take Buffalo with that. But the best bet in this game is the over. zero defense being played on both sides. I know McDermott has the reputation of being a defensive coach, but their defense is awful. They don't even try to stop the run. And in the passing game, if you can avoid Tre'Davious White, you're doing a pretty good job, especially, that at that linebacker level, they're pretty bad. So I like the over a lot here. We liked it at 54 early in the week. It got up to 56.5, now at 55.5, under sort of a key number in the modern NFL. Take it there. If it does get to 2.5, you do have to consider Buffalo in a teaser. The only issue is being the high total.
Maybe the first time in PFF history we're saying too many nice things about Josh Allen and not paying enough attention to the other quarterback. That's Kyler Murray, averaging the most fantasy points per game ever in a single season among any quarterbacks. Right now, only Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, and Todd Gurley have more fantasy points from strictly rushing production. It is absolutely insane. Dual threat players at quarterback and running back, even the few wide receivers you see at carries, they are fantasy football cheat codes, and Kyler Murray is taking that to a brand new level at this point. Fire him up, fire up Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, everyone in this game. As you guys said, over still seems a little bit low as it is, and highest just combined the situation neutral pace in this one. I don't see how either of these offenses bust.
What are you doing with, we talked about Chase Edmonds before, so a lot of people obviously picked Drake, kind of high in their drafts. They probably have Edmonds now. If you had to start one of them, which one, and are any of those guys cracking your top 20, 24?
It would still be Edmonds because they're both kind of on that borderline of the RB 25, 24. But, with Edmonds, it wasn't the one RB backfield that we saw with Drake healthy this year like it was last year. It was that way with Edmonds last week because he's the primary pass down back. But, we saw this last year when David Johnson, that famous old debacle where the social media account never gave us any sort of indication that David Johnson would be limited. So there is a chance Drake is, one of those emergency only options. And because of that, I got to go with Edmonds.
Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has a rushing grade over 90 this season. In the past 5 years, there have been two quarterbacks with rushing grades over 90 for a full season. It would be Kyler Murray and last year's Lamar Jackson. That's how good he has been. It's ridiculous. Another Kyler Murray stat, because we got on this train, is that when he drops back to pass but doesn't end up throwing, in other words, he either gets sacked or scrambles, he's averaging 5.3 yards per play. The NFL average is -1. It's just ridiculous. He's not taking sacks. He's finally leveraging his rushing ability. And for that reason, one of the props I like in this game is Kyler Murray under 1.5 passing touchdowns. I know that's counterintuitive to the over that we like, but think about this. It's plus 155. How many times have we seen him drop back to pass in the red zone and then just destroy defenders en route to a touchdown? So I think that's a sneaky one. You get a plus price. And then I like both Buffalo running backs over their receiving yards, 12.5 and 15.5. The Buffalo Bills, they threw the ball 95% of early downs last week. Keep the train rolling.
They're God's team at this point.
Be the anti-Titans. Let's keep it going. All right. The Los Angeles Chargers go to Miami. The Dolphins are 16th ranked team with Tua, Justin Herbert, and the Chargers, number 22, finding a new way to lose every week. The Dolphins, 1.5 point favorites, total of 48.5. It's going to be about 83 degrees, mostly sunny. We know that the last time a Los Angeles team went to Miami, they got stuck on the hot sideline. Jared Goff was a hot mess, and they got absolutely rolled. So the question here is, can Justin Herbert not turn into Jared Goff in the sun?
Yeah, and I really think the thing here is how both quarterbacks are going to do, given the pressure and the defenses that are going to be thrown at them. Miami did a great job against Jared Goff. They've done a really good job the last couple of weeks. The Chargers get a ton of pressure for a defense that leaks as badly as it does. They're number 6 in pressure rate, 36%, but they are dead ass last in terms of blitz rate in the NFL. And the gap between them and the next team is the biggest single gap between any of the teams in that ranking. So Tua is going to know exactly what he's looking at, and with no Joey Bosa in this game, I don't think he's going to have as much of a problem as you think he might, given how much pressure they get.
You make such a great point, Sam. I was writing an article this week about predictability about pass defenses, and the Chargers are easily the most predictable pass defense in the NFL.
Right.
They don't blitz very much. They run the same coverages all the time, and that's pretty good for a rookie quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. So I thought that this game would be such that the Chargers would be favored eventually. I told that to George. I'm wrong. This has gone in the other direction. I think Bosa being out really does help in that regard. But there's a sneaky thing that the Dolphins lose this week, which is Preston Williams. He's been that secondary receiver that they really needed. And even though I think Jakeem Grant has Tyreek Hill potential in many ways, Steve Smith potential, they don't give him the ball very much. And so they're going to have to change that a little bit because that's the area of the field that Tua likes to throw to. I like Los Angeles in a teaser here. I don't like either side, though.
Tua who?
Tagovailoa.
Wow, look at that. That one came in hot there. That's very good. Good job. Justin Herbert has just been like on absolute fire. We know that the Dolphins, they run as much cover zero. They're going to put as much pressure on quarterbacks as any team out there. And they've got those lockdown corners now in the back. Are you still firing up Justin Herbert this week?
I think you have to. He has averaged the most fantasy points per game as a rookie, as a quarterback that we've ever seen. Better than RG3, better than Cam Newton. Joe Burrow's like number 5, so both these guys have been playing well, but Herbert's truly been on a different level. This feels like the rookie floor game that he has been able to avoid so far, but now we're going across the country to Miami. We're facing a very good defense, as you guys have brought up, and I just wonder, how much longer can he survive behind this patchwork offensive line and keep pulling these crazy plays out of his hat? I mean, I remember in the Saints game, 2 unblocked rushers, doesn't matter. The guy's rolling out and making it happen anyway. You got to start him in 1 QB leagues, but DFS, I'm mostly staying away. I think we should temper expectations. Again, it's more of a feeling-based thing because it's hard to pick apart anything the guy's done. He's been so great all season, but he can't maintain this, and if there is a spot for it to come kind of crashing back to reality a little bit, this sure feels like it.
His yards per attempt and his passer rating are about the same when pressured as with clean. I think that's really the one thing. When you look at his college statistics, 90 grade clean, 90 grade clean, 90 grade clean, like 40s grade when pressure. In the NFL, it's been totally the opposite.
Right.
And I think if there's one way where you see Herbert, who's been amazing so far, coming down back to earth, it's the pressure stuff sort of like, coming back down. Let's say they get an injury at the receiving corps or something like that. That might be the place where Herbert's leak is.
All right, I'm going to make a statement here. I'm a little nervous about it, but I think this is where I need to go. Everyone loves Justin Herbert. Richard Sherman went on Chris Collinsworth's podcast and said, of all the rookies, including Joe Burrow, he is taking Justin Herbert. That comes crashing down today. Tua is the one that's going to ball out today. It's after this week. It's going to be, wow, we should have had a lot more faith in Tua Tagovailoa coming out and lighting the world on fire. As you said, I don't think the Chargers defense is one that will give him a ton of issues. We saw last week he's got a little bit of juice, a little bit of athleticism. He leverages that again this week, has the better game than Justin Herbert. That being said, I love teasing the Chargers. So there you have it. We are going to roll with some start-sit. When we come back, hang tight with us in about 60 seconds. Ian Hartitz, start-sit.
PFF Live pregame show is going to be right back. While you're waiting, we're going to go over the consensus rankings for our running backs at PFF.com. Remember, you can get all these for yourself and see the individual rankings, strength of schedule for all these guys. Dig into it for yourself. But since we only have a few seconds, I'm going to help you out here. Go 15 through 30 for the consensus rank of all 4 of our rankers. Here we go. Number 15, DeAndre Swift, followed by Jerick McKinnon, Leonard Fournette, Darrell Henderson, Melvin Gordon at 19, and then Ronald Jones at 20. Giovanni Bernard, Joe Mixon is out. A couple of rankers have him inside their top 15. J.K. Dobbins at 22, J.D. McKissick 23, Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor already played. Devin Singletary would be number 25. Philip Lindsay, James White, Wayne Gallman, Jordan Wilkins, Nyheim Hines, both already played. They're in there at 30 and 31. Latavius Murray, Joshua Kelly, Rex Burkhead, Damian Harris, and then JaMychal Hasty right ahead of Adrian Peterson.
You're probably sitting at home comatose trying to watch the Masters, and so you don't have time to think about start-sit decisions, which is why we're here to help you out. Ian Hartitz is going to break it down for us. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. A guy in the wind you don't like, a guy in the dome you do like. Shocked.
Makes sense, man. Even before the win was just in the picture, Baker Mayfield is not someone we should be looking to start with much confidence week to week. The Browns want to limit the amount of passes he throws as much as possible. It's pretty much like the Minnesota Vikings. Just that's what they're running in Cleveland this year. And because of that, Baker, hey, if he can make the most out of his 20-25 pass attempts, that's great. But in that passing game with the win, no, sit Baker unless you're super desperate in a 2 QB lead. On the other side of the coin, Jared Goff is someone that we need to go back to the well with. Facing the Seahawks defense that just hasn't been able to slow down anybody. And whether you want to pin that on their lack of pressure, their secondary, whatever it is, have allowed the most fantasy points per game to opposing QBs all season long. Don't expect that to stop here. The problem with Goff has also been volume. I feel like this will be a week where they have to keep their foot on the gas and throw as much as possible.
On the RB front, it's Duke Johnson's time, baby.
Free Duke. We've had Bill O'Brien and Hugh Jackson, who everyone loves to mock for everything, but for some reason we've taken them at their word that Duke Johnson, the use all-time leading rusher, is some sort of scat back. Oh, he can't handle a big role. He's missed 2 games since 2014 or 15, whenever he came into the league. So, look, I don't think he's going to get the exact David Johnson, almost every single down back role, but he's going to be like what Boston Scott's been without Miles Sanders, a 60-70% back with 15-plus touches from Deshaun Watson. That's anybody's idea of an upside RB2. On the other side of things, I think we need to more or less sit these Bills running backs. Maybe Zach Moss finds a way to get back into the end zone, but look, Josh Allen hates checking down, and he loves taking off to try to find the end zone from inside the 5-yard line. Great things for his fantasy stock, not so much for his running backs.
Jerry Jeudy last week, 7 receptions. Every single one of those came with at least a step of separation. Talks a lot about the way that he's able to separate with his route running. Expect that to continue this week?
Yeah, it's been all season. I mean, even if last week was the first breakout, I just feel like, from day one with Jeudy, one of the most exciting parts of watching a Broncos game is getting that wide receiver cornerback ISO cam, because you're about to see some route running goodness. Now we finally have the targets that should be coming to a player of his talents. I have him as my wide receiver 22 on the week. Should be in more starting lineups than not. On the other side, I want to sit Travis Fulgham. We talked about this in the Eagles segment, but I'm just worried about how these snaps go. Fulgham has been fantastic. He's been on the team since October 3rd. Alshon Jeffrey's been there since 2017. Made very big plays for organization. I want them to keep Fulgham out there. He's been the only source of light. Sit him this week, and we'll reassess moving forward.
I had Robert Tonyan in my lineups for far too long, and I saw that you were going to sit him this week, and so thankfully, I have saved my lineup. Give me a guy that you're starting instead.
Yeah, just 3 tight end committee in Green Bay. Can't have that. I'm starting Dallas Goedert with all sorts of confidence. He came back from injury before their bye, played like 86% snaps. That was a full-time role. Just couldn't get it going against the Cowboys. I know this Philadelphia Eagles passing game has been such a roller coaster all season long, but Goddard, we've seen it for years. I mean, this guy truly is, if not the most talented backup tight end in the league, he's right up there in the top 3. So without Zach Ertz in the picture, get used to treating Dallas Goedert as a weekly top 5 option at the position.
There you have it. No Robert Tonyan, start Dallas Goedert, Jerry Jeudy, Jared Goff, and finally, Duke Johnson. We'll be right back. We've got Seahawks, Rams, Bengals, Steelers, and Broncos, Raiders. We are about 45 from kick.
You are trying to set your lineups right now. I'm going to go over the tight ends. I'm going to read numbers. I'll just go through 1 through 20. Why not? You can go to pff.com and get all of these. You can see the individual rankings by ranker. You can look at the strength of schedule. With an Edge subscription, it's just $40. It is a great deal, so go make it happen. Here we go. Number 1 is Darrell Waller, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Dallas Goedert. Number 5 is Rob Gronkowski. Then Hunter Henry, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, Eric Ebron, Mike Gesicki. Number 11 is Jonnu Smith. He already played. Austin Hooper, Jimmy Graham, Robert Tonyan, Jared Cook. Number 15, Trey Burton, Logan Thomas, Tyler Higbee, Jordan Reed, and then Gerald Everett at number 20.
We're back, 45 minutes to kick. We're going to start with Seahawks, Rams. Rams, I still don't totally understand it, but they're 2.5-point favorites. Probably something to do with the fact that the Seahawks defense just didn't even go to Buffalo and got absolutely shredded. Total on this game. Yeah, total on this game is 55. The Rams are our 10th ranked team. Seahawks number 7. This one obviously being played in SoFi Stadium inside. I would like to say, hey, look, the Seahawks are the better team. Give me the Seahawks. I'll say this. I'm definitely teasing them at 2.5 out to 8.5. They just don't play non-close games. Last week, I think, was an aberration. So I love this, teasing them with, say, the Chargers or the Bills. But if I'm just taking this game alone, I'm taking the points, baby.
Well, I will say the Seahawks are the better team, so just give me the
Okay,
Seahawks.
thank you.
Look, their defense has got some problems. Let's say that they can be exploited. On the other hand, who the hell have the Rams beaten? They're 4-0 against the NFC East. Their one other legitimate win is against Chicago, who have no quarterback. They got beaten by Miami, who wrecked on all sides of the ball. They got beaten by a reeling 49ers team. They basically don't have a legitimate win yet this season. At which point, Seattle are not that bad. They'll win.
Yeah, I think the only thing that can keep this over from hitting is the fact the Rams don't have Nick Mullins. Because the Seahawks are going to score at will in this game. The problem is we've seen this already. I mean, we had the over in the Miami-Los Angeles game when all Los Angeles had to do is drive down and score one touchdown. And, when they're behind, the Rams have nothing other than speed outs to Cooper Kupp in their playbook. They don't throw the ball deep. They don't, that's the tricky part. If this game is close, I feel like it's going to be a shootout, and there's going to be, a lot of running, a lot of, play action passes by the Rams. The Seahawks defense is a problem, but they weren't a problem against San Francisco just 2 weeks ago in the first 3 quarters of that game when the offense doesn't produce. When they play a good offense, they're exposed because that's basically every defense in the NFL. So I like Seattle here, but I like the over if this game stays close.
Yeah, I think the over is certainly in play. I mean, come on. Russell Wilson, he'll put up points on anybody, and that's why I do like the Seahawks in this one as well. I hope that you all laugh at me when I say please don't bench Tyler Lockett, but I feel like on fantasy Twitter, people are getting so upset with these performances. So even if I'm reaching just one of you out there, don't bench Tyler Lockett. There's been this kind of myth that it's either a Tyler Lockett or a DK Metcalf week. Metcalf, it's always been Metcalf week except that one game against the Cardinals. And with Lockett, having 200-yard, 3-touchdown games, you can't just take those out of the picture and say, oh, well, if you remove this one massive week-winning performance, he hasn't been playing that well. The fact that is in his range of outcomes is the reason why he needs to always be in your lineups. And last week, he was fingertips away from having a 30-yard touchdown down at the 1-yard line on the other time. You only have to go back to the first month of the season to find the last time that Metcalf and Lockett went off in the same game. Eric, I think you said before that the stack with Russ, Lockett, Metcalf could be kind of sneaky in DFS, and I got that same feeling. It shouldn't be sneaky because they've been the best pass offense really all year long, but would not be shocked at all if they're able to just really have their way with the secondary.
People overthink it because the Rams defense has played really well against NFC East, right? But as we talked about before, the NFC East includes a bunch of replacement level quarterbacks. So
you have Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods both in your top 15. Talk about how they spread the wealth.
Yeah, we need to. The Seahawks have allowed 300 more receiving yards to opposing wide receivers than any other defense. They've already had a bye week, so it's just they have been that bad. And look, it's Kupp and Woods. Josh Reynolds has been doing his thing lately, but the only reason why Woods and Kupp have been more wide receiver 2s than wide receiver 1s this year has been volume. And Goff did throw the ball 60 sometimes against the Dolphins. Before that, we were struggling to even get 35. So with that out of the picture this week, I'm fine firing up both those guys. The running back situation not so clear. We got Cam Akers maybe getting the post by rookie bump we saw with DeAndre Swift. It's always a two-headed mess. Now I think it could be 3 RBs more times than not moving forward.
Darrell Henderson, though, he's the best running back of this group, right?
I think so. He's coming off an injury, though. I think he's fine, but
give him the ball. Let Darrell eat, man. We talked about the points, and this is why the prop king loves 2 props in this game. Really love them. Tasty. Plus money on both quarterbacks over passing touchdowns. Now, it makes sense. Jared Goff over 2.5. Goff is not very good. He's not a very good quarterback, but Sean McVay, great coach. This is all about Sean McVay. Plus 160 over 2.5 passing touchdowns. Those little pitch passes, little touch passes? Yeah, that doesn't take, I could do that, okay? Send me to LA, give me Sean McVay. I'm getting at least 1 touchdown.
Wow, you're not going to Buffalo, but you're going to go to LA?
Yeah, right? Call me biased. I'm sorry, okay? But here's the crazy thing. Russell Wilson over 2.5 touchdowns, I'm finding it at plus 145. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. I don't know what sort of crystal meth they're giving people out there in Las Vegas, but that is ridiculous. Take both quarterbacks over 2.5 passing touchdowns, sit back, relax, and feed your family. Bengals, Steelers, 54 degrees, mostly sunny. However, some 20-plus mile-an-hour winds. Big Ben nursing injuries all over his body, which is seemingly par for the course. At this point, the Bengals coming off of a bye, total 45 and a half. This is interesting because Eric and I do a podcast, The Break of Dawn. You do a podcast, Break of Dawn, on Sunday night after those games. This was a 9.5-point game at that point. It's gone all the way down, cross 7. It's now 6.5. At 7, I was taking the Bengals. I felt really good about it. At 6.5, I am struggling. I'm struggling. Is anyone still riding with the Bengals at 6.5?
Yes, I am. I think this game is all down to how Joe Burrow reacts to that Pittsburgh defense. And I think people are scared away by what happened to him against the Baltimore Ravens, who also bring a ton of pressure. But I think there are very key differences between those two defenses. The Ravens are really good at confusing you behind the blitz and behind the pressure in a way the Steelers just don't do. They're going to come after you. They're the number one pressure team in the NFL, still at 48%, higher than we've ever seen over a season. But Burrow will at least be able to diagnose what's happening behind that. 348 passing plays this year against the Steelers. On only 26% of them have they rotated the safeties, rotated away from a look that they had pre-snap. Burrow will be able to diagnose what he's looking at and be able to pass behind that blitz, even if he's under pressure.
Joe Burrow, better quarterback in this game, yes?
Oh, no. Well, not only that, but when you look at these offenses, the Bengals, I think, get a break with no Joe Mixon. Because look, Joe Mixon getting paid a lot of money, much like McCaffrey. If you want to feed him the ball, and I can't think of something more depressing than trying to hand the ball to Joe Mixon 25 times against a Pittsburgh defense.
What about Leonard Fournette?
No, Mixon's
not even.
worse.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I like that fact in this game. The issue for me, but I'm still on the Bengals, but my issue is obviously the backup offensive linemen.
Yeah.
The fact that the Steelers are one of the more unpredictable defenses in the NFL, and they have talent on the back end. But Big Ben doesn't make enough big plays to separate. Less than 4% of his throws are big-time throws. We've seen a little bit of variance. He's been good with pressure. We generally see that regress for most players. And they're bad with play action. They're the one singular team that can't seem to get any run off play action, over a number of years. So this is tough, and I think you're not getting the best of it anymore. But take the Bengals.
I mean, aren't you worried though? Like we've seen Joe Burrow against the Ravens. It wasn't that Joe Burrow is a bad quarterback in that game. It's simply that he had no chance because they were blitzing incessantly, and it looked like Zach Taylor didn't have not one play of a blitz to look at for the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, but that's one game in a season full of games where Burrow's been mostly impressive. The Bengals had a really good game against an Indianapolis defense that shut down the vaunted Tennessee Titans just 3 or 4 days ago, right? Like they've basically been a pretty good offense all year. The Ravens game is probably something they're thinking about, and there's an additional thing here, and I know it's probably baked into the number at this point, but home teams off of a bye, there's no edge there. It's actually probably overvalued in the marketplace. Road teams off of a bye are not, and that I think gives a little bit of an edge here. Pittsburgh coming off of a road game where they had to grind it out just to beat Dallas by less than a touchdown. The Bengals are coming off of a bye, and a team with I think a lot to look forward to here. I can see why the people are betting on the Bengals.
Be careful though. Steve said that the Bengals are going to win this game outright.
Yes.
All right.
Big
Well,
red flag.
Burn
the whole thing down then.
An absolute curse.
Burn the whole thing down then.
Ian, you are rolling with the under here, which I think is interesting because we just talked about the inefficiencies of Pittsburgh. We talked about the potential for Joe Burrow to be under a little bit of heat, and we've talked about the wind.
Yeah, it's all adding up to maybe not that many points. I've wanted to bet the overs all year. I feel icky doing it, but I do feel like this and the Washington game could be the two unders of the week. And what I'm interested to see is what Pittsburgh really does in terms of just their running back usage. Because last week, James Conner only played 48% snaps, but it wasn't because Booger McFarland or Benny Snell was getting out there and taking snaps away. It was because over the past 2 weeks, the Steelers have had 23 pass attempts and then 20 pass attempts out of empty. They never had even more than 8 pass attempts in that formation throughout the first 7 weeks of the season. So, to your point, the play action game isn't working. They've seemingly just abandoned that entire idea, and they're putting Ben back there with, Ebron and 4 wide receivers. So that's not good for James Conner because that means if the game gets away from them, he's not even going to be on the field to kind of soak up some of these targets. So he's always kind of had more of this Kenyon Drake type just RB2 role than the RB1 role that we got used to seeing from Steelers running backs. He was able to make up for it with a lot of touchdowns earlier in the season, but as we see his Steelers offense stalling a little bit, he's not quite that top 5, top 6 back that a lot of people might have thought they had.
I will say this, Big Ben banged up. Bengals not exactly a vaunted defense in any way, shape, or form. So you could see Mike Tomlin being like, okay, let's just run the ball and try and get out of here with a win, which gives my man Joe Burrow a little bit of a shot. What are you doing with these Steelers wide receivers?
Yeah, it's just, I have them right next to each other. I think like 26, 27, 28, because it's tough to tell. At least James Washington is out of the picture from a snap standpoint, but then he scored against the Cowboys as well, so he's still out there. I do still think Claypool is the guy getting the fantasy-friendly air yards, and they do, we've seen him get jet sweeps inside the 5-yard line. He still seems to be the guy they're designing targets and rush attempts for more weeks than not. But Deontay, we've seen him get these, 10-plus targets games like clockwork. And Juju, I know is the Cowboys secondary, but to me, just eye test, I thought Juju looked as healthy as he did all season in that Cowboys game. So hopefully he gets that moving forward and we continue to see the healthier version from Juju, because that really hasn't been there since 2018. And he's gotten so much flack, and he can't produce without AB, but really a fun guy, and hopefully he can be that healthier version of himself moving forward.
Only one prop, but my God, is it sweet. Joe Burrow. Don't doubt Joe Burrow. Never doubt Joe Burrow. And putting his rushing total under 10 is an absolute slap into the face. I mean, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. So what will I do? I'll profit. Take Joe Burrow over 9.5 rushing yards, minus 120. And then you don't have to watch the rest of the game, because he's going to get this on one attempt. You're welcome. Broncos, Raiders in Las Vegas. This was a 5-point spread. Raiders favored by 5. That was when Eric and I made it our lock of the week. And that, of course, the markets reacted. And now it's Raiders by 3.5. Raiders are our 14th ranked team. The Broncos are number 23. So to give you a sense, just using those power rating numbers, that makes the difference between these two teams exactly 3.5, which is interesting. Total at 51. This is a dome game. I will say this. I don't like the movement of the number, but I'm still getting 3. I think this ultimately is a close game. I will still take Denver.
I'm going to take the Raiders, and it's interesting. I was thinking, what is the difference between the Raiders this year and last year? And it's the deep ball from Derek Carr, but he's not even throwing dramatically more of them. It's a slight uptick from 9% to 10% of his pass attempts. His PFF grade is basically the same on those deep attempts. The difference is he now has receivers. He's got Henry Ruggs. Nelson Aguilar has become this dangerous deep threat. Hell, we're even getting Hunter Renfrow bringing in catches on these deep shots. So the deep passes are averaging 6 yards per attempt more than they did this time a year ago. The Raiders' offense is just more dangerous, even though Derek Carr isn't necessarily playing any better on those deep shots. He just has weapons now.
This game reminds me of when the Raiders last season at 6-4 went to New York to face Adam Gase's Jets as 3-point favorites, and got blown out by the Jets. The Raiders find me a team that handles modest expectations worse than the Raiders. Derek Carr last year was awesome in the first half of the season too, and then trailed off in the end of the season. Gruden was a great play caller first half. The rookies for the Raiders were terrific last year until they weren't, right? And the issue, I think, with Las Vegas is that a lot of the things that they're living off of right now are pretty unstable. The deep ball, yeah, it's awesome when you hit them, but you can't sustainably work those plays every single week in a sustainable manner. Denver, I just think Denver is going to be able to exploit that defense enough where laying points, this is only the third time the Raiders have been favored all year. They were favored week 1. They got home. Last week they were favored at the close by 1 against Los Angeles, and needed kind of a really dumb play sequence by the Chargers to win that game. And I don't think such play sequence happens in this game. I think Denver not only covers this number, but wins outright.
Wow. To Sam's previous point about the deep ball rate, we've actually seen that jump up to 14.9% since Ruggs got back in week 5. That's higher than Brady, Matt Ryan, Herbert, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, gunslinger Derek Carr ever since Ruggs has been in the lineup, even if he isn't necessarily throwing that much to Ruggs downfield. And that's the only issue in fantasy land. Will we have enough pass attempts to make this work? Because John Gruden seems like he just wants to give the ball to Josh Jacobs and Devontae Booker for some reason and get out with the win. Can they do that against the Broncos? We'll see. It's surprising the defense has still played as well as they have without Von Miller and Boye and these guys, but that's a testament to Vic Fangio and what he's capable of doing. But for me, it's all right, okay, I'm not disagreeing with you guys about Derek Carr, but what about Drew Lock? We're really going to give him the benefit of the doubt in this one? I just think there's a much wider range of good and bad outcomes for the Broncos, and because of that, I do like the Raiders.
Is there something with Drew Lock that's associated, though, with the weather that they face in Denver? They've had, bad weather games most of the time. This game's being played indoors, and, I do think that there's a little bit of bias that we're building into the Drew Lock evaluation. He's not great, but I do think in good circumstances like this against a terrible Raiders secondary, he might surprise some people today. Not become brilliant or anything, but be a player that can actually get us to the window with this pick.
So I do a hit every single week on a Denver station. And for the past 3 weeks, we have talked about the one quarter that Drew Lock has played well in each game. Yeah. And every week I'm like, yeah, I get it. He played well in the third or the fourth quarter. Congratulations. Like, can we maybe do that in the first quarter? And I think the key to that, honestly, is saying, hey, Melvin Gordon, here's the bench. Enjoy it. Hey, Jerry Jeudy, here are 16, 20 targets. Just every single time, throw Jerry Jeudy the ball. Speaking of Jerry Jeudy, how high up your rankings is he moving this week?
Yeah, he's locked in there as a wide receiver too. He should be in, more starting lineups than not. If you're benching Jerry Jeudy, you better have 3, top 15 wide receivers that you're doing that for. To your point, he's getting the targets. We've seen the great route running all season. He's looked like their best wide receiver. Now they're treating him as such. Fire him up as an upside wide receiver too the rest of the year.
I've got 2 props for you here. Derek Carr. We talked about how John Gruden wants to run the ball. Well, Denver's going to make this competitive. Derek Carr over 35.5 passing attempts is plus 105. You don't draft Henry Ruggs for no reason. You got to throw him the ball. And then Josh Jacobs, 12.5 receiving yards over minus 115. This guy's an athlete. Give him one screen, let him run. Over 12.5 receiving yards for Josh Jacobs. All right, we're about 28 minutes to kick. We've got Ian's upside plays in DFS this week, his helicopter pick of the week, and then a few more games to hit. Hang with us. We'll be right back.
PFF Live pregame show will be right back. While you're waiting, I want to tell you about all the good stuff that you can get at PFF.com. If you're trying to set your fantasy lineups right now and you have a start-sit question, our rankings table is exactly what you need. It has all rankings for each of our 4 rankers. They all bring a unique perspective, so you can side with one of them, or you can use our consensus rank. You can use the strength of schedule to help you break a tie. We do that for every single position based on PFF grades. It's an awesome tool. You go check out the wide receiver cornerback matchup if you're deciding between a wide receiver and it's too close to call, and you can decide which one has the better matchup. And if you get an elite subscription, you get my favorite tool on the entire site. It's the props tool. You know I love it. It's how I give you all of the prop king picks during the live show. There are a bunch more that I don't touch on, so you'll want to go get that, especially if your where you make your bets gives you some different prices. You can adjust it in the tool so you can see whether that particular price is a good deal for you. So go make it happen at PFF.com. Either an Edge or an Elite subscription is a great deal for you. Enjoy week number 10.
All right, we're back with the upside plays that you need in your DFS lineup. You'll notice I'm wearing Masters green. I'm trying to perform well on a Masters Sunday, unlike my man Tiger Woods. It's been sad from what I've seen on the I watched the scorecard. Some guys that we expect to actually overperform their expectation, though. Start us off, Ian. Who do you like?
Yeah, Miles Sanders at 6,400 is someone that the only reason he's priced at that point is because before he got injured, they were playing the Ravens and Steelers in these brutal spots. But he has been this workhorse RB1 that we've wanted him to be all season, except when he's been injured. At least 75% snaps in all of his healthy games. And now facing the Giants defense that, okay, they played a little bit better than we think, but come on, it'd hardly be surprising to see Miles Sanders find his way over the century mark and into the end zone a time or two. I love the idea of stacking Sanders with that Eagles defense and special teams, getting after Daniel Jones, who's been pressured at the highest rate in the league. Another running back defense combo I like is DeAndre Swift and the Lions. You look at this Washington defense, and yes, I understand they got those beasts on the defensive line, but no Galladay. We've seen Stafford's average target depth plummet. DeAndre Swift is kind of like Antonio Gibson. We wish he would get more touches, but he's still looking at 12 to 15 per game with a handful of targets as well. So, in a matchup that maybe could put up, I like the under in it, but I do think if the Lions are going to find some success, it will be with DeAndre Swift. Last running back, James Robinson at 6,600. Packers are the second worst defense in fantasy points per game allowed to the RB position. James Robinson didn't have the targets last week with Jake Luton, but still 25 carries. They want him to be the engine of the offense. My favorite play of the week, though, George, Brandon Ayuk.
Give it to me.
Brandon Ayuk at 5,700. Big thing that stuck out to me in that 49ers-Packers game was the broadcast, Troy Aikman saying he talked to Kyle Shanahan, who said that about 85% of their pass plays were designed to go through Brandon Ayuk.
Oh.
He wasn't there, so we saw Richie freaking James go for 180 plus. Now Brandon Ayuk is back. Fully expect him to be the featured man. Saints secondary, Marshawn Lattimore, he hasn't been good except when he's facing Mike Evans this year. Either way, you're talking about those pop passes in LA. We're seeing the same sort of stuff in San Fran. I'm sure Shanahan can design a way for his best playmaker to get the ball. Right now, that guy is Brandon Ayuk.
Did you see him hurdle that guy a few weeks ago?
I did. That was great.
He's an athlete, special athlete. By the way, Kyle Shanahan, you expect him to not have a good week this week? Two back-to-back bad weeks? It's not happening. Please. We're going to talk about 49ers Saints here in just a second. We are now 23 minutes to kickoff. We will be right back. This was the game of the year last season. 49ers Saints. Been a somewhat different year for the 49ers. They're our 13th ranked team. The Saints, after a big win against the Bucs in Tampa Bay, are number 3, and they are a 9.5 point favorite. Total is at 49. I'm going to kick this one off, and I'm going to say what I said in the last segment, which is my man Kyle Shanahan ain't going to miss 2 weeks in a row. I don't care if it's Nick Mullins. I don't care if it's Garrett Gilbert. I don't care if it's Sam Monson. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He's got some weapons back. They have Trent Williams now back, which I think is big. They were just in such a tough spot against Green Bay. I'm throwing that game out, and I will take the over.
I think that's a fair point, and I think you're probably right that Kyle Shanahan will provide a much bigger test to this defense than the Tampa Bay Bucs did last week, where they got thoroughly outcoached on both sides of the ball. But I am curious if the Saints D kind of found itself in that game, because heading into that game as a unit, they had a PFF grade of 64. That jumped to 78 against Tampa Bay. If the Saints defense has become the sort of, championship caliber unit that people thought it was on paper heading into this season, the Saints are a much better team.
Hold on. I have to remind you something very important.
What's that?
Defense doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, that's true. I will say, though, that if that defense is actually showing up from now on, they'll still get run over by some teams. They'll still allow some points, but they're a different team overall.
I want to fade this notion that a defense finds Jesus during the middle of the season, because I can't do it. I can't do it. Like every single, it's like, have the Raiders found their defense?
It was the Bucs. It was the Bucs 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, the Bucs were the 85 Bears 3 weeks ago, right? Like, give me the Saints getting out to a big lead here, and then give me Nick Mullins, baby. Both the last 2 weeks, just he's a baller. He's a baller. He checks it down. They get 2 touchdowns in the final quarter, and this thing goes over 49.5, just like it went over in Seattle, just like it went over against the Packers last week.
Last year in this game, right, the Saints defense, by and large, was the same freaking defense, right? Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't think anyone is thinking he is Joe Montana, right? This game, we had the over in that game. It went over midway through the second quarter.
It also featured George Kittle.
Yeah, but that wasn't.
Have you seen Jordan Reed?
Emmanuel Sanders was throwing deep passes in that game.
This Ross Dwelly shade will not stand.
But also, like they have 3 receivers now that can play. Richie James. See, I don't even know his name, and he's balling out last week.
Ian, help us, please.
Oh my gosh, I think it's Brandon Ayuk season. Said that before, but I could be a little bit more Jordan Reed this week. 49ers do have a little bit of a history with Deebo Samuel and some of these guys this year. They bring them back from their first game off of IR, kind of ease them back in. We could see Jordan Reed taking on a higher role. So in DFS, I do kind of like the chance to save some salary with him. And look, I know Nick Mullins hasn't looked good, but to his defense, they've had a lot of banged up guys, and he's at least trying to throw the ball downfield. Only Alex Smith has had a higher percentage of his passing yardage be after the catch than Jimmy G. So even if it hasn't gone, that great for stretches with the 49ers, we might actually see, an overall higher ceiling of this offense with someone like Mullins there that is willing to at least take some shots downfield.
Where do you have Ayuk ranked overall among wide receivers?
He is, I believe, my wide receiver 19, updated it this morning, ahead of Justin Jefferson, Judy, Brandon Cooks, DJ Moore, all those guys. Let's get it.
Ooh, feeling good here. Okay, I've got 2 props here. Alvin Kamara was a little banged up last week. They didn't even need him. They just rolled over Byron Leftwich in that joke of an offense. This week, he'll come back, 5.5 receptions, plus 105. You're not going to hold my guy down 2 weeks in a row. Come on. And then Drew Brees, over 34.5 passing attempts, minus 105. Reason being, I like the over here. I think points are going to be scored. 49ers are going to be a little more competitive than people might think for parts of this game. Drew Brees has not looked bad throwing the ball. They want to get him into a groove with Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. I'm all for passing. Of course, if you go to PFF.com, you can check out the props tool. These games are a little later in the day, so things will update. You might want to get yourself some action. Head over to PFF.com. All right, the Sunday night game. Baltimore goes to New England. The Patriots are a 7-point dog, total 43.5. Patriots still in the top 20, our 18th ranked team. The Ravens still in the top 5 at number 2. I feel like people are really down on the Ravens, and it's largely their passing offense. Their yards per pass play is down a full yard this season. Lamar Jackson said he felt like teams knew what they were doing on offense, which is never a good thing. And if you figure there's one defensive coach that's going to know what they're doing, it's probably Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
15 mile an hour winds. So I don't know. I guess the question is, do you think this Ravens offense is going to get back on track this week?
Yeah, it's one of those games where fundamentally I think the Patriots are just not very good, and so the Ravens should get back on track, should roll, should win. But when I start diving in and start pulling numbers out, every number I find scares me from that opinion. You're right, it is the pass game largely for Baltimore. It's gone off the rails, but the run game has as well, and that's what's kind of scary. Last season, their run game averaged 0.13 EPA per play. This year, it's 0.03. It's a massive drop-off. As a group of ball carriers, their PFF grade last season was 88. This year, it's 68. Everything has fallen apart, and you add in now the fact that apparently defenses know what's coming, and you're facing the Patriots. It is scary, but I think the Ravens are just too good not to cover.
You're still going with Baltimore.
Yeah.
I'm taking the over. I've seen him getting back on track a little bit and then points being scored.
Last season, the Baltimore Ravens had, by a country mile, the most valuable offensive line in football.
Yes.
You lose Ronnie Stanley from that. You lose Marshall Yanda. Marshall Yanda, by the way, 1L. Always confuses me, by the way. So now you lose that, and you don't have, like, Greg Roman's not some, like, genius, right? He when you can block things up, things are good. When you can't block things up, things are bad. It surprised me to no end that New England has a more efficient run game by almost 1/10 of one expected point than the Ravens do. And I think some of the things with New England have been unlucky, right? Like, Cam Newton's under 2.5% turnover-worthy play. He's produced a decent amount of turnovers, but they've been of the drop pass variety. They've been of the sort of sneak that fumble against Buffalo, kind of a noisy thing. I like New England in this game because I think Cam Newton, when you have Jacoby Myers, when you have Damiere Byrd, can probably play enough offense to keep up in this one.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this Patriots defense could not slow down Joe Flacco and company, and they haven't exactly gotten all that healthy. So we'll see.
I mean, Flacco has a Super Bowl ring. Lamar Jackson does not.
And defense doesn't matter. So we got to keep that in mind. So I do think the big question here, fantasy-wise, is just Jacoby Myers and can he keep this going against a much stiffer test just in terms of secondary. I think the answer is pretty much yeah. I mean, I have him ranked as my wide receiver 29 this week. Nothing too crazy, but ahead of Mike Evans, Godwin, Hollywood Brown, Christian Kirk, and these guys. So giving him the respect that he's deserved just out of this target share. And yeah, to your point, I think the Cam Newton hate, certainly didn't play well, after kind of coming off the COVID list. But these past 2 weeks, aside from that Buffalo fumble, really has been playing a lot better.
Yeah, no one's right about Cam Newton. No one, right? Everybody thinks he's trash or he's brilliant. He's somewhere in between. I think somewhere in between right now is better than Lamar.
I mean, Myers is the only guy that can get open, so he should get the majority of the targets.
Exactly.
Hold on, Damiere Byrd. Please give my man some credit. No, it's crazy that you say that though, because Godwin and Evans were guys that people had locked in as their top 1 or 2 wide receiver.
AB season.
Yeah, and now that's how crazy the NFL season is. That's why you got to stay glued to the waiver wire so you can pick up Jacoby Myers. What the hell are you doing with the Ravens backfield?
With Mark Ingram now expected to play, stay away. We cannot do 3-headed committees, particularly when you have Lamar Jackson, whose rushing usage over the past few weeks has really been up there. And we had that 2-carry game where we were kind of wondering, is the knee an issue? Since then, 9 carries, 16 carries, 13 attempts. Like Josh Allen, he's usually not too fond of throwing to his running backs as it is. I think Dobbins maybe eventually continues to get the work, but Gus is still there, and I think Ingram, being the incumbent starter, will continue to get his share as well. So just
Gus
too
must
messy.
have fumbled in the red zone last week, probably tanks his chance.
They went right back to him though.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's a weird backfield.
When you draft a running back in the second round, you've got to find a way to split his carries among 4 different people.
It's true. You don't want to overuse it in the cheap years of the contract.
Yeah,
for sure.
it's very important. And that's how you cover up for the offensive line issues. You pick the running back there.
Speaking of offensive line issues.
All right, I have one prop here, and it's my main man, Lamar Jackson. I have a feeling that Bill Belichick is going to say, you know what, you're going to beat us throwing the ball. And I think Lamar Jackson might be able to do that. Over 1.5 passing touchdowns is plus money, plus 135. I will probably ride with Lamar Jackson until I die because he's Lamar freaking Jackson, and you should too. Enjoy yourself. Vikings-Bears is Monday night. We are 13 minutes to kick. We don't need to belabor this game. If you want more on this game, you can check out all of our content tomorrow. Eric and I will do a prop stream before the game. If you're playing DK Showdown, there'll be tons of stuff there. So we're going to keep this one short and sweet. Your picks on this game, it's going to be 44 degrees, not much chance of rain, 15-mile-per-hour winds, and apparently Nick Foles will be playing. I'm going to go ahead and say Mitch Trubisky gets some run in this game. And Major Lazer is calling plays in this game, so that should be great.
We motivated the Bears to change what they were doing via the PFF forecast Monday morning last week.
Right.
That's the impact. That's all that goes to this game.
And I think that's a big thing. I mean, Matt Nagy wasn't part of the problem last year. It was all the fact that Mitch Trubisky was just completely non-viable. But he's got himself into a rut where he was part of the issue. Even when Nick Foles played well, they were still a disaster because the offensive play calling was a mess. I think that's significant, and for that reason, I think the Bears will jump back.
Yeah. In this game, you're going to see, I think, a lot of boxes that are not going to be conducive to Dalvin Cook. And you're going to see coverage with Jalen Johnson leading the way. That's going to be a lot harder on Minnesota than what you've seen in previous weeks. So I think this thing stays close. I played the Bears in a teaser a few times. It was 2.5. I'd probably play them at plus 3.5 was where it's trending now. Just because I think the last 2 weeks had Vikings fans overly excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could have gotten the Vikings, before a line swung this heavily. But I think people are putting too much in their Cousins, past just failure against the Chicago Bears. And if you just look at this Vikings team, since they're bye, the defense has gone from maybe one of the worst units in the league to not awful. They do seem to be well coached under Mike Zimmer, which we expected to happen. But not having Daniil Hunter and these guys, there's a lot for them to overcome in the earlier parts of the year. They look better, and through it all, the offense, other than those 2 or 3 just awful Kirk Cousins games a year, they have continued to put up points. I think Justin Jefferson's been a big reason for that. Give me the Vikings. I just think they're the better overall team.
We need to clip the not awful that you just said there and put that next to every single defense in the NFL. Not awful.
Fair enough.
Not awful also characterizes our performance on this show today. It wasn't awful, much like your outfit. Not awful.
Just median.
Just median. Thank you guys for tuning in. As usual, head to pff.com to get all the great content from all of these fine gentlemen. Check out the props tool if you want to get on board, be a part of the props kingdom. I welcome you. Come, join me, and profit. Have a great weekend, guys. See ya.